Hi, I'm Lauren.
And I'm Callie.
And welcome back to the Book Common Room podcast. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Book Common Room podcast. We're so happy you guys are here. Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy 2025. This is going to be our year.
Oh, yeah. A year of reading. We love it.
100 books.
Oh, yeah. Wait, are you doing that too?
I haven't committed to it.
I'm nervous. So far, we're doing good. Of the 3 weeks...
You've read a lot.
2 weeks.
I've read one book.
It's because Callie has had a to-be-read list for me for a long time. And I just haven't been able to keep up with it because of school. Mm-hmm. And so... I feel like I had all these books as soon as I graduated, I'm like, I'm reading them.
Now's the time.
Yes. And then I got books for Christmas. And so we have a list. And I feel like I'm doing pretty well so far. So, anyways, how was your holiday?
It was good. It was really chill. I basically just read. I read The Hunger Games.
Nice.
Started The Poppy War right here. This is my book that I'm reading.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. This is a series I'm reading. I don't even know. The Mirror Visitor.
The Mirror Visitor. It's a French book. It's amazing. Y'all need to read it.
Yeah. I've been thoroughly enjoying it.
It's a fun, YA novel.
I'm very impressed by it. I really like the characters.
I wish I knew French so I could read it in French.
Same.
Because there are just parts of it where I'm like...
That's a translation thing.
This is a translation thing that's just a little weird.
Because it'll make things plural.
Yeah.
It always says, clenching their jaws. And I'm like, you mean just their jaw.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a translation thing because some things in the language are plural even though it's a singular object. It's just weird like that.
It is weird.
So,
anyways.
Our holidays were great, you guys. We want to know how yours was. I know a lot of people in our circle of friends also just read.
Yep.
And so it's just been a nice break to just relax, unwind, and read. And so, yeah.
I hope you guys like this setup. We wanted something a little bit more cozy.
But also we don't have the budget to get new stuff, so
we're working with what we have.
Anyways, we're super excited to talk about the book of this month, Fourth Wing, by Rebecca Yarros. And so we're going to just get into the book, introduce it a little bit, and kind of, the conversations that come up with popular books like Fourth Wing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want me to talk about Rebecca Yarros?
Yeah, go for it, Cal.
So just to follow our normal, we introduce the author a little bit for every book that we're reading. The nice thing about Rebecca Yarros, though, is that she's alive.
She's not a dead author.
She's not a dead author. We're not having to review her whole life.
Jane Eyre. Or not
we did Charles Dickens last.
Yeah, we did Jane Eyre, so we were going into the Brontes.
Yeah.
And then we kind of went into her whole family tree.
We did.
And
I loved it.
We did Charles Dickens, and so yeah. This time we have a live author. I guess Emma Wong.
That's true. We did Emma Wong. That's true. You're right. So Rebecca Yarros is most known for the Fourth Wing, or what's the series called? The
Empyrean?
The Empyrean series. If we say any names wrong, I apologize.
That's just the nature of fantasies.
Yeah,
books.
This is true. She's most well known for this fantasy series. Fourth Wing was published in 2023. Then the second one was just published last year. Mm-hmm. And then the third one's coming out this month.
January 21st.
So, everyone get excited. But she has been writing since 2014. She has mostly published romance novels. So she has various military novels, hockey novels. She studied English and European history. And
whatever that means.
European
history.
History. All of Europe.
Yep.
Sheesh. Let's see here. Her first published book was Eyes Turn Skyward, which I had never heard of before, but go her. Let's see here. She's been, just a little about her, she has 6 kids. Apparently they're in the teenage years. I don't know. I didn't look to see the date. All of this information was published on her website.
Yeah.
So they could be older. But as of then, they're playing, looks like some are playing hockey, and they just live with their family and their dogs and their chinchillas.
Whoa.
And a coon cat.
Named Artemis?
So cute.
cute.
But she's like living, thriving, writing a lot, it seems like.
Yeah.
She like
consistent.
She's very consistent. She's been publishing 1 or 2 books about every year, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
There's a lot of people who write 1 book in their lifetime and is like, this is good for me. Rebecca,
That's so fair.
she's on it. She's
She's
like,
on
I
it.
have a lot to say.
I know, yeah. Well, there you go. First fantasy series was Fourth Wing.
Mm-hmm. And she did, I mean, her first fantasy series, man, kicked off.
Yeah. Dang. I wish I was that successful that quickly. That's incredible.
Like, she published the book 2023, and then as of today, it's got over 2 million reviews on Goodreads with an average of 4.58.
Yeah. Which
out of
is
5.
crazy.
That's
on Goodreads?
Crazy. With 2 million reviews, that... I think Brandon Sanderson, I don't even think any of his books has even reached that high yet.
No. That's incredible. That's an incredible feat.
Right? That is definitely something to, like...
Bring up and
like really give her props for that.
Yeah, especially in like conversation of like our thoughts as we get into, because of course this is the non-spoiler. When we get into a spoiler, whatever it was our experience was, it does come down to the fact that this has been heavily recognized, and we should bring up the fact that a lot of people liked this book.
A lot of people liked it, and it's definitely, I think, going to influence a lot of stuff that's going to come out.
For sure.
I bet you in the next couple of years we'll see tons of books that are going to be similar to this.
And this book also is very similar to other fantasy series that I've read before.
Like even the Poppy War. The Poppy War has got a war school in it.
Oh, cool.
There aren't any dragons. They have, you get high and commune with gods.
But dragons or drugs?
It's like a high stakes war school.
Love it.
It's how it starts, and then like a war breaks out.
Cool.
But yeah.
I love that though. So yeah, Fourth Wing is our first fantasy series, and it was heavily recommended to us, and is very trending right now. And so we were like, okay, we gotta know what this is all about, because neither of us had read this book before.
I know, I've definitely heard of it before.
Yeah.
I was always a little afraid to read it.
Same.
Because when something is so hyped, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Well, and Callie was the one that suggested we do this, and I was very shocked. I was
I was the one that said we should do this.
Us to read this? Okay, we're doing this. But we're very excited. So there's our little intro of Rebecca Yarros. Another thing that I think is really cool that could come up more in our next episode too is the fact that the main character is never like brought up by this fact, but the main character is always described, and we don't feel like this is too spoiler to say in our non-spoiler episode, but she's very small.
Oh, it's on like the first page.
Yeah, and she has like joint issues. Like she just talks how like her joints have like problems, and like how her shoulder always like gives her issues. And it was an interesting thing. I never thought anything of it in the book. I was like, all right, cool. Move on. But apparently it has to do with an actual disease, like a chronic pain that people have.
Yeah, Rebecca Yarros hasn't come out and said this is what Violet has, but people do speculate she has
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
I don't know, but EDS.
Like hypermobile, yeah.
Causes chronic pain, EDS. Joint instability, and other connective tissue challenges. The one thing that stood out to me, again, it's on like page 5, so I don't think this is a spoiler, but her sister and her mom are having a conversation, and her mom says the line that to her sister, like, oh, your sister Violet probably goes through more pain by the time she's woken up and had breakfast than you do all week.
Yeah.
So it kind of just, it really, I actually was pretty impressed. I thought it set up like her character very well using that. Like she's
used to pain.
She's used to pain, and she's going to probably experience some, but she's going to be able to get through it. She's going to be strong enough to be able to do it.
Yeah. Like pain is a Thursday. Yeah. Kind of a thing.
I also didn't feel like, because sometimes I do get annoyed when it's like, oh, she's so small. Yeah. And he's so big. Oh, I know. And like it's a constant just like talking about size. I think that is a little annoying. Yeah. But with hers, I did feel it was legitimate. Yeah. I didn't ever think that was annoying. Yeah. I know some people did critique that, but I don't know. If you have like a legitimate chronic illness and you can't help it, like I don't think you can fault her for that.
I honestly don't ever have that issue. Like, I don't care about the size of the characters. So if they happen to be small, they happen to be big, I get that that's an annoying trope.
If it's repetitive,
but I just am I guess
get annoying.
I guess in the book if it's constantly saying their size. But I usually am like, I don't really care. But in this, I was like, it kept talking about the joints and I didn't know the extent. Now it makes more sense that it's like kind of alluding to a chronic disease because they're in pain all the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we bring that up because Rebecca Yarros has it. So I thought that was interesting that she made her main character similar to her in that way.
She definitely uses, well, it seems like she uses a lot of her own life experiences in her books, which is not bad.
No.
Yeah.
But, like, I wouldn't have really seen that until we, like, sat down and looked into the author's life. Because sometimes when people recommend books, I don't really look into the authors. I kind of just read the books. I'm like, oh, that was really great.
Especially books like these.
Yeah. And so it was nice to read up on who Rebecca is and like being able to understand her in the context of her writing. So anyways.
Yeah, and she's not just some old guy that wrote a book.
Yeah, it's not a Charles Dickens, even though you should read Charles Dickens. But anyways, all of this to get us to this conversation of what makes a trending book.
Right? Like, why did this book versus some... Because there's
so many good books out there.
Books about military schools. There's tons of books about dragons.
Romance.
None of this is new.
No.
I do think the idea of putting dragons and the military school together is new.
Yeah.
I did some research and I couldn't find anything that I recognized that had the two put together like that.
Totally.
But, like, the individual concepts aren't new. Even the politics within weren't original. It's been done before.
Yeah. So
it's like, why did this
get 2 million
why
reviews
is this one popular?
Almost 5 stars for this book? And so we've been kind of going back and forth about this. Like, is it because it is good? Like, it's just a good book? Is it more about, like, the topic? Is it the fact that they did mesh military school with dragons, with romance, with magic? Like, is that why people love it so much? Is it the genre? Is it because it's like romantasy? All of those things. So like we've been going back and forth on like what could it be? And I feel like it really is a mixture of all those things. Like I feel like generally for us, because I don't know if it's just us, like I'm sure it's a lot of people. I feel like I've been exposed to so many different kinds of genres that seeing a rating like this is crazy to me, because I'm like, really?
Yeah.
This book?
Right?
This book got this? There's so many other books out there that I think deserve this kind of viewing, like, or just response from readers. But I do think it has a lot of things that people love. It's easy to read. It's easy to access. I think there's tropes that people love in this book.
Tons, yeah.
Just classic tropes. One of them being like the enemies to friends or enemies to lovers trope is definitely a prominent feature in this book series. But I don't want that to... Me saying that, I don't want that to be... I don't know... taking away from what audiences actually think, because some people may have thought it more than that. Like, this is kind of surface level things that I'm judging it by being like a trending book. So maybe there's more to it. I don't know.
Yeah, so I interviewed my friend named Kelsey. It's totally okay with me talking about her, I asked. But I just kind of asked her, like, why she loved this book series so much.
Yeah.
Because we'll go into our, like, spoiler episode. Because I thought she said some really good stuff. But she specifically said she loved it because she could see herself in the main character.
Yeah.
Because she has similar health issues to Violet. They're not the same, but they're very similar.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny. Her mom actually said to her that if she were to be in a fantasy book, she would have to be like Violet.
Yeah.
She would have to figure out other ways to be able to fight because she just physically can't, like, bulk
She's
up.
small.
She's small. Well, it's not even more than she's small. She just can't.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like most, even in the Poppy War, which is about, like, the main character is a woman, there's usually some montage of them, like, getting strong, getting fit, like, building muscles so they're not just small anymore, but they're really strong. But Violet just really can't. Like, she does get stronger, she does build muscle, but she still has that limitation.
Mm-hmm. She's strong in other ways.
Yeah, but she had to find that and use that. So she just liked having a fantasy novel where she could see herself in the main character versus just like a literary fiction novel that's just too real life.
Yeah. So that could be another reason why people really like this book series. I think that's so cool.
And it's more than just the enemies to lovers.
Oh, yeah,
like, it's deeper than that.
It's deeper than... And that's what I was hoping not to get to. I was like, I think a lot of people like these tropes, but I don't think it's just that surface level... Because I feel like I initially judged it that way, and then I read it, and I was like, oh, I can see how this can be a lot more impactful for some audiences. I also, like, looked up generally, like, what makes books trendy, too. And something that, a book editor had said with, like, best-selling novels was that they tend to have a common element. And, like, for most successful novels that come best-selling, super trendy, they are good about suspense. And while I read this book, I thought there was, like, good tension and there was, like, some suspense. Like, this book editor was like, most people that get really hooked to books is because they're good at building suspense. And so first, like, it immediately has to provide a sense of momentum. There needs to be some sense of urgency. And when you do start this book, you kind of get that. You're kind of planted into a challenge already.
Literally.
And then it establishes the emotional stakes of the story. And if there are no consequences to the character's actions, why would you want to keep reading? So that was their kind of explanation for why books get super popular, is because they're interesting because of the suspense. And so I do think that element is in this series, so that could be another reason that it's super trendy.
I can see that. I was talking to my sister the other day about the Hunger Games, because I just finished rereading the Hunger Games. And one thing I am very sad about when people think back to the Hunger Games, not everybody, but I think oftentimes you usually think of the love triangle. Like, you think of the games, but usually people are like, oh, isn't that middle grade dystopian with the love triangle? And that makes me so sad, because the love triangle is a trope that's in it. But it's so much more than that. Like, my mom was like, I was just talking about the Hunger Games. She's like, Callie, I just don't think it's all that serious. And I went, what? I think it is. I think it is a little bit. I think it is that serious. I think there's a lot more to it. But tropes are just easy to advertise and easy to talk about. It's a lot easier to say, hey, here's this book about dragons and enemies to lovers. It's so easy to say that versus this is a book about
censorship,
like all of these politics and all of these things. And so plus it gets that, I feel like tropes are what hooks people. I don't think tropes are bad.
Stay.
I think tropes get a bad name. I think all books have tropes.
Oh, for sure.
I think if you take tropes out of books, there's not going to be really anything left.
I agree. I'm totally with you there. But then I feel like I spiral when I get in these conversations. Just because, I don't know, like, reading is so much more complicated than a conversation of what makes a book trendy, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't even know if this is exactly where we want to drive this conversation. Mainly the point of us talking about the book today is just to introduce it, the author, and also, like, there is a major buzz going around this book and, like, trying to figure out why. But also, like, gets me wondering, like, what makes good writing? And I feel like that is so... I think it really depends. But the thing for me, not necessarily, like, popular writing, but good writing to me, compels me to write in the margins.
Yes.
And, like... people, I don't know, I've read fantasy books where I've written in the margins.
Yes.
Like, I underline things, I'm, like, commenting to the side, and I feel like if a book gets me to do that, I feel like it's good enough writing for me to, I don't know, immerse myself, because the book doesn't just seem like a book for me to be eating up. Like, I'm also thinking and, like, engaging myself into it. And so, like the book is part of me. And so to me, I feel like that's what makes I don't know. I think that just shows the power that reading can have on you. And I really like something that this guy had said. He has this book list. His name is Mortimer J. Adler. I don't know too much about the man. I just know that he's pretty smart. And
he's a smart guy.
he's a smart guy and has like, he's just one of those old guys, right?
He's got some wisdom.
He's had some wisdom. But he, and I like him, and he has like a lot to say about books and reading and the power of reading. And he has like this giant book list that he recommends everyone read. But he's basically says that good writing is not just about conveying information, but also about actively engaging with the reader by encouraging them to mark up the text, essentially making the ideas their own through annotations and critical thinking. He believes that a good piece of writing should stimulate the reader to actively participate in the understanding process, going beyond passively consuming words on a page. His book list is not for the faint of heart. I think I have a faint heart, which is why I have not read them. Do you know
what just a few on his list are?
They're very academic.
Okay.
So I'm going to kind of get into this guy a little bit more. Because I feel like he says a lot of interesting things that I think are worth talking about. But he has like this great list of the Western world, like kind of books that we should be reading. And I know a lot of it is like Machiavelli, Thomas Hobbes, Aristotle, Plato, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
other philosophers.
And he himself is a 20th century philosopher. He was a popular author. But I just liked what he had said because I totally agree with that. Like, I think good writing encourages us to participate in them where it feels like it's a part of us instead of us just always consuming. And so I liked how somehow we could be a part of the world building when that's what a book can do for us, I guess. And I liked that.
Yeah, if I can interject a little bit, I 100% agree with you. Just a little spoiler. Fourth Wing wasn't my favorite.
That's okay.
I think there are a lot of really great things to talk about. And we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Don't worry. This isn't going to be like hate.
No, but I want you to feel like you can. Because clearly people get very heated about this conversation.
They do.
It's subjective. Like,
It is.
What is good literature? Like, what is good writing? Like, what? And to so many people, I think Fourth Wing was a level up from what they were reading. And for me, I feel like I was like, but also I enjoyed it. So who knows, you know?
Yeah. See, like Fourth Wing, I definitely read it. I did write in the margins, but it was more of like, why did you use that word?
See, well, that's a different kind of engagement, though, right?
It was kind of like a hate engagement, though. And so I kind of like, I eventually stopped because I didn't like how it made me felt. Because I was just focusing on the, like, all of the, I hate this. Mm-hmm. So then
more critical.
I was so critical and I just didn't like it. So I eventually stopped because I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But I like what you said, though, how, like, you almost become part of the book while you're reading it. Like, you yourself become almost like a character in this novel, even though you're just viewing it, basically. One critique I had from the very beginning of Fourth Wing is I felt like Violet knew a lot, but us as a reader didn't.
Yeah.
So, like, within a first-person world, oftentimes the reader discovers the world and the politics along with the character. Yeah. So, like, if the reader doesn't know something, it's because the character doesn't know it. Yeah. I felt like Violet knew a lot that the reader didn't. Yeah. And so I felt left behind.
I like that.
There were just certain times where I was like, Violet, it seemed like she knew what the answer was, but the reader didn't. And I was like, why aren't you telling me?
See?
I want to know. There were things she was learning, and she was still, like, discovering things throughout. But there were just some parts where I was like, you are a scribe. You spent your whole life studying history. Yeah. Why aren't you telling us history?
See, I totally get that. I'm with you with that.
She does tell us brief history while she's nervous.
Yeah. But then if she's, like, hasn't gone into it, they have to kind of do an explanation later. Yeah. And so I'm totally with you. I feel like she tries to write it off because she was a scribe. But at the same time, It's interesting because I'm used to having readers who don't know learn with me, or they're an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And so they specifically omit stuff from me, so it's a surprise
I
later.
could see if this was written in third person.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, yeah, we're not going to entirely know. But since we're in Violet's head.
Yeah.
As like a first person narrative.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows? But I really like that comment and that critique. I also... Okay. This might take a turn into a conversation. But I feel like I, just as much as the next person, love just escaping into a book.
Yes.
Like, different from my peer. My best friend.
I have friends that I have escapism books.
No, you do. But I loved ACOTAR. And which is fine. Like, who cares?
Love it. You know what? You love it.
You love the books you love, and I love the books I love. I loved it, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So, I will be rereading them for the next book and mourning the characters that they don't exist. Like, that is a thing that I have. Like, I feel like I need to talk to someone about this because
I have the same thing.
Because like, I'm like, dang, like I wish these characters existed. Like, I like leave the book empty, and so I have that.
I finished Hunger Games and I texted you.
Yes.
I feel empty inside.
You feel empty.
Like,
books
it's a
do
real
that to
thing. You close the final page and it's like, now what?
Well, because like sometimes like you just read and I don't know. I feel like
you're so immersed.
You're so immersed, and like, but then you realize how lonely you feel after you're not reading them. And so I will say, like, I am so for reading for escapism. Mm-hmm. I know we listen and we don't judge. Okay, that's something I need to say here.
I love your fist.
Okay.
We listen and we don't judge.
Yes. I just want to if I could leap out of your screen and tell you, reading can be so much more than just escaping, though.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish people knew. Okay, maybe that's what this podcast is. It's like reaching all your chakras. It's like
chakras.
It's instead of that, it's reaching into all that reading can be for you.
Yeah.
Reading is so amazing. Mm-hmm. And I know there's such like massive dispute between like what books are, what literature is, what capital literature L literature is, and what lowercase L literature is. And we're just throwing that all to the wind right now just to say that books can be so much more than escapism, and we just want you to find a way to spread your wings. Yeah. And try new things. Like, we're trying new things too. Like, through this next year, we are going to be trying different kinds of books that we haven't had before. Like Callie, she has spread her wings and has known, okay, that really wasn't for me. And I was right. But there could be other things in the future that she's like, wow, I'm really glad I tried this because it changed my perspective. It's changed how I think. But I enjoyed Fourth Wing. But I think reading can be so much more than that. We just want to open you up to the possibility. I don't know. It's transformational when you try new things.
I guess my follow-up question to that is, do you think Fourth Wing is so popular because people just want to escape? And you can escape in Fourth Wing? Do you think that's why it was so popular? Do you think there's a level as a whole people of community? Do you think we all just really, at our heart of hearts, want to leave the space we're in and find a new world?
Which I think is
fair. So that's
fair.
why that's why Fourth Wing is so enjoyable. Yeah.
And first off, this really isn't me shaming anybody about escaping into books, because I do it all the time, and I love that people read to do that. But I just want people to know that I've been changed by reading when it wasn't just for escaping, but it was like homework almost to read something. But it was important. Like, it was important that I had done that. Because there's just so much books can do for us. And I get if you're not interested in it, because that's how I was. Yeah. And then I became an English major. And I was forced to see the different possibilities of reading. But I feel like with Fourth Wing, it was escapism for some people. But I feel like it could have been more like Kelsey. Mm-hmm. Like, it was a form of escapism, but also it was personal. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like, I think for some people it was. Like, I know there's people in my life who read purely to escape because they just want to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
They work 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
They just need time to unwind. They don't have time to sit and think,
Mm-hmm.
which I get. Like, if you're working 12-hour days, why the heck would you brutally go through Dostoevsky,
Yeah.
writing notes, trying to figure out... maybe some people do, and I'm amazed by that. But for some people, they just want to turn on an audiobook that's about a murder mystery. Like, I get that. And so this book could have been for escapism, but I think for other people it could have been personal. So once again, it's really up to the reader. Mainly, I think it could have been. But this was just my shtick of going into, like, the possibilities of this podcast, because we're introducing all these different kinds of books that I feel like can be approached differently and not always with escapism being the reason.
Yeah.
I don't know.
When I was thinking about this whole question of why Fourth Wing was so popular, because honestly, I started it and I was just like, I don't get it.
That's fine. Like, so fine. That's great.
But as I'm like talking to more people and as I talked to Kelsey, I was like, no, I can totally see it. Because I have other novels with the exact same stuff that I totally love.
Yeah.
Because I think their literature is definitely and should be a way for us to learn how to be empathetic, to grow. Yeah. But also, it can just be fun.
Yeah.
I think reading at the end of the day can also just be fun.
Yeah.
And you can, I mean, weirdly, I have fun reading dystopian books like Hunger Games and 1984.
Instead of it being like a fairy tale land you can escape from your problems, it's the other way. It's like, wow, at least it's not this bad.
I think I might need to talk to somebody, but I find that fun.
That blows my mind.
There is a level of enjoyment that I have when I'm reading a book about a world that's so messed up that it makes me... and then I can like find correlation of how their world is messed up, but our world is also messed up like this too.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want it to go this way, so I should be this other
wary of this.
This, or I should be cautious of this. And I think it's a lot of fun to look at how authors built worlds, characters, like the structure. I find every aspect of creating a novel fun. So I think for me, I don't find stuff like Fourth Wing enjoyable to read because it just doesn't have the stuff that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily care about the stuff she's writing about. I think that's what it comes down to. But if you have fun reading Fourth Wing, cool.
Yeah.
Like, you should have fun. You should enjoy... You shouldn't spend your life reading things that you don't like.
No, it's true. I will say, though, I have no context for this, but when I read Fourth Wing, I've only watched the Hunger Game movies. I've never read the books.
I'm just bringing it up because that's just the last thing I read.
No, which makes sense, but I'm bringing it up because when I read it, I thought it was like Hunger Games.
It is.
It gave Hunger
Games influences in there.
And so I was like, oh, I'm getting... And it wasn't that it was full-on dystopian like Hunger Games is. But there were some things particularly sus that I was like, oh, I can see this being in this similar genre. So it could also be popular because it has those similarities with other books that are very beloved.
I feel like dystopia as a genre is very popular.
Yeah, it is trendy.
And like, especially fantasy books that have a dystopian type world is usually very trendy.
I wonder if that could be psychoanalyzed. Like for a general, like for collective memory's sake, like of many generations who have just like dystopian literature. I wonder if that's like some kind of commentary on like how we feel about our own government sometimes.
Well, for me, it's part of like humanity. Like, I also love apocalyptic stories because it's all about humanity.
Like, there's some sort of control going on, and there's like, you're being lied to. What if everything is just a lie, and then you figuring it all out, and was it worth you figuring it out, or do you want to just go back to being ignorant? You know?
Because it all boils down to the human on the page that's in front of you, and like their reactions. Sorry, that's another thing I loved Hunger Games. People tend to not like Katniss because she's crazy. I love Katniss because she's crazy. Like, you're just in her brain the whole time. And I just love how Susan Collins explored what it might actually look like for a teenager to go through something traumatic and what that does to you.
Yeah.
Violet, for me, felt a little bit like she's experiencing it, but that's all she's doing is she's experiencing it. There wasn't, to me, it didn't seem like there was a lot of, like, follow through. If that makes sense. It's like, oh, I need to do this, so I just need to do it.
Yep.
I don't want to die, so I'm not going to die.
Oh, I get what
that
you're
makes
saying.
sense. Like, there's not a lot of, like, thinking about the consequences other than not dying.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
But, like, what's the bigger picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think a lot of it is solved in the second book, but at least in the first one, I just didn't feel like that was there.
Yeah. I do feel like the second book, because, and we'll get into this in our spoiler episode. Yeah. How many times will we say that? But I feel like there's a lot of things that happen in the first book that she has to break down in the second one. And so I feel like you get more of that vulnerability.
She introduces a lot in the first.
Yeah. So there's a lot more of that kind of vulnerability that you see in Katniss, potentially in the second one. I don't know comparatively because I've never read Hunger Games.
I haven't read the second one.
But I do know that enough from the movies that she's unhinged. But clearly so, like, I understand.
It's like movie times 10.
I think the movie was great, and I always
movies.
liked Katniss. I think a lot of people had issues with Katniss, but I loved her. I was like, dang. My thing is, I liked Violet because I related to her, not because I have any chronic illness, but just by the fact that I'm just weak.
That's fair.
And have poor balance. I've fallen down the stairs twice today.
Oh yeah, she had a really bad spill before this. I felt so bad. I
know, clearly I would not have made it past
the first
any sort of challenge in the Hunger Games, so I would have been dead for sure. I think I would have been one of those that just survived because they hid the whole time. So anyways, but back to our conversation of just escapism, and that's not a problem, but saying that reading isn't only escapism, and we just want to see if you'd be interested in trying reading beyond just escaping into a book.
Yeah.
Because, oh, man, back to the old man, Mortimer J. Adler. I have this quote pinned in my, like, browser, like, you know when you can star stuff?
It's a great quote.
It's a great quote. And you can look this up and there'll be far more names that he says. I just can't pronounce them because I don't know anything. So I'm just going to pronounce the ones that I do know. But it was an interesting thought because it's him, like, going into why should we read kind of a thing. And that's kind of what we're talking about. So he goes, suppose there were a college or university in which the faculty was thus composed. So you could be, I don't know, lectured by Plato and St. Thomas in a course of metaphysics. Or you could have John Stuart Mill discuss the logic of science. Aristotle, Spinoza, and Immanuel Kant shared the platform on moral problems. Machiavelli, Thomas Hobbes, and John Locke talked about politics. You could take a series of courses in mathematics from Descartes, Riemann and Cantor, and Bertrand Russell and Whitehead added at the end. You could listen to St. Augustine, Aquinas, and William James talk about the nature of man and the human mind, with perhaps Jacques Maritain to comment on the lectures. In economics, the lectures were by Adam Smith, Karl Marx, and Marshall. Boas discussed the human race and its races. Thorstein Veblen and John Dewey, the economic and political problems of American democracy, and Lenin lectured on communism. There might even be lectures on art by Leonardo da Vinci, and a lecture on Leonardo by Freud. A much larger faculty than this is imaginable, but this will suffice. Would anyone want to go to any other university if he could get into this one? There need be no limitation of numbers. The price of admission, the only entrance requirement, is the ability and willingness to read and discuss. This school exists for everybody who is willing and able to learn from first-rate teachers. I was like, that's so true. Like, how much money would I spend to go to university being lectured by these people? I would definitely spend a fortune going to that.
100%.
You can do this for free. Half of this stuff is in the public domain. If you wanted to learn about these men, you could. Or these people in general, like, just such great literature, such great minds from all sorts of different, I don't know, backgrounds you can get, like, from, like, just in your hands. Like, you can get this. But the question is that he's bringing up is, why would you? Like, if you can just pick up Fourth Wing or Lore Olympus right here, and you just pick it up and you can just explore and kind of, not saying that these books you don't think through, because clearly, like, they're very personal to people, but for the ones that do just read so they can just escape and kind of, like, do it so they don't have to think, he's kind of making the argument that you're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And so his whole point is that the poets bear the ancient man, or just humankind in general, who saw the sun rise and set, felt the wind on their cheeks, was possessed by love and desire, experienced ecstasy and elation, as well as frustration and disillusion. They knew good and evil. So the ancient people speak across the centuries to us, sometimes more directly and vividly than our contemporary writers. And the ancient prophets and philosophers, in dealing with the basic problems of, I don't know, humans living together in society,
people
still have something to say to us. And so I think that's kind of my argument a little bit. Not even saying that there needs to be an argument, but I do just want to open up that reading can be like that, and why we read things like Jane Eyre, and why we read A Christmas Carol and Frankenstein, because there's people, we all in the end have the same minds.
Yeah.
In the end, we all have very similar human experiences, like he said. Like, we feel disillusionment, we feel lied to, or we feel loved, or we feel, I don't know, there's just like, there's such a range to the human emotion. And it would be such a missed opportunity to write off these authors as being out of touch, I guess.
Because they're old?
Because they're old. Or because they weren't written in our day. And I feel like I have felt so seen by people that are dead.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if people are arguing against that. But I just want to make that point, because there's such great things about Fourth Wing. But there's also such great things to be said about these books. Mm-hmm. There's just so much to learn from them that I don't want people to miss out on, I guess.
I love the next sentence in that quote. Exclusive preference for either the past or the present is a foolish and wasteful form of snobbishness.
And provinciality.
I thought that was funny. Because it's true.
It's true.
Like, it is pretty snobbish to be like, I only read things that are published in the 1800s. Or I only read contemporary stuff. Yeah. It is pretty snobby to, like, to exclude, like, a certain group just because of the time period that it was written in. And I mean, there is stuff that has probably been published a long time ago that, it should stay in the past. Yeah. But, like, there's so much we should learn from the people in the past. Yeah.
And not saying that this is like an overarching comment, because some of those books really are artifacts of their time. Yeah. But to bridge time, the human experience transcends that. And so when Adler says, like, our ancient poets and prophets of the past, he is very masculine when he's saying things like these. There's definitely some patriarchal language going on here.
Yeah, we changed a couple.
We
adjusted to fit everybody.
Yes. He makes the point to say that ancient poets, prophets, philosophers, men, women, the human experience are as much our contemporaries in the world of the mind as the most discerning of present-day writers. So I'm just saying that the human experience is timeless. And so, yes, there are books that are very much their artifact of their time. Charles Dickens, child labor laws did not exist. And so that was clearly something he was talking about. But also, like, poverty, of course we still have that. We still have poverty these days.
Well, and I mean, we still have that, like, very current is, like, children on the internet. And, like, child influencers. Like, child labor.
And you have people speaking out about how children were not protected, still aren't very protected. Yeah. With being on the internet, and also in, like, film, in production.
In film, I mean, you have the Coogan, what's it called?
I can't remember.
It's the Coogan something, where you basically, like, you get a certain percentage of whatever you make set aside that you get when you're 18. Yep. But I mean, like,
before that,
there are still a lot of child actors that never saw
that abuse and things like that. And so this is just, I don't know, us getting into the fact that we want to try lots of things and open up how reading can be transformational in more ways than just escaping into a book. Not saying that that's bad, but I just want to say my life was changed when I stopped only reading Harry Potter.
Yeah. Like, you should have fun reading and find things that you enjoy, but you shouldn't limit yourself.
Yeah.
To, like, you should go out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
Stretch yourself.
Yeah. But I find reading so powerful to the point where I do want to seek out the best books.
Yeah.
In whatever genre, in like whatever time. But I don't know. The more I read, I feel like the more I want to study. I don't know.
I get what you're saying.
Like, I want to be a student and I want to learn. Even if it's a fantasy novel, like this series, The Mirror Visitor. I'm like, I want to take notes. It's Callie's books that I'm borrowing, so I'm not.
Oh, you totally should.
I've seen her notes and I'm like, I agree. But it's just, I think there's something so magical when a book gets you to be a part of it, I guess. So anyways, this was our very philosophical, ruminating.
Do we want to show the TikTok video that I found?
Oh yeah, go into that. That's awesome.
Okay, so while we were thinking about this whole topic, we'll cut to the video somewhere in this conversation so you can watch it, and I'm not just going to explain it.
Yeah.
I'm going to replay it for us, though. So I was just scrolling on TikTok, as one does, even though it might go away in a couple weeks.
A little brain rot.
Yeah, it's fine. That's my fourth wing is TikTok. I'm just kidding.
That's so funny.
Anyways, I was just scrolling, and I am consumed by literature, so I get a lot of
book talk
stuff. And a lot of times it's people who are just like recommending books, and I enjoy those. Like, obviously, Fourth Wing was huge on book talk. It still is.
Oh yeah.
But there's this one lady. She's a teacher, and she's basically talking about this. She uses the vocabulary books versus literature.
Oh yeah.
So like books are...
We didn't go there.
No, I don't necessarily love that.
No.
I would say like lowercase L literature and uppercase L literature. Because everything that is put together is literature. Like, this is literature, but I would call this little L literature.
And there is academic definitions for these things, but I feel like people on book talk kind of blur them.
Yeah, and we don't really need to get into that.
No.
I do think it's funny that people on TikTok find we're going to play it, but what she's going to say very, like, scandalous. Because it's stuff that people have been talking about since the beginning of time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, poets and romantics. Like, the romantics and the realists.
As soon as we were recording the written
word,
like,
they were fighting all the time with what was the real literature, the romantics or the realists.
Yeah.
Like, they were debating which one was the best.
Yeah.
So it's been a debate since forever. But I kind of want to watch this video and then just, like, chat about it a little bit. Because I do like how she puts... There are a couple of things I don't agree with, but I do like a lot of what she says.
Yeah.
This is an argument that many people will find elitist, but hear me out. There is a huge difference between just reading a book and reading a work of literature. The distinction between what is just a book and what is a work of literary merit is not as subjective as some might think. In my recent reading history, I have read many books that I would consider great works of literature. I have also read many books that I would not consider works of literature. Not everyone is trying to create works of literary merit. But here's the thing, having read across both categories, I can tell you the serious works of literature are better by every measure. They're more engaging, entertaining, and readable, but they're also thought-provoking and paradigm-shifting. Every couple months, I convince myself that I just want to read something light and fun. Those usually end up being my DNFs. On the other hand, I have to force myself to start a book that is a little bit more weighty and substantial. It takes me a while to get into those books, but when I do, I am so engaged and intellectually stimulated, and actually becomes easier for me to finish those books. What I think I want to read is different than what I actually want to read. I think I want candy, but I actually want vegetables. You don't have to pretend like all books are on par with each other in terms of what they can offer to the reader. Doing so just feeds into the anti-intellectualism movement. And while I believe everyone should read whatever they want, truly, I think most people would benefit from just trying something outside of their comfort zone, something that requires critical thinking and is worthy of serious discussion.
There was one thing she said that I didn't entirely agree with, that like every great literature is like more entertaining and is just better. I don't think that's entirely true. I have definitely read great literature that I was so bored.
Or I've read great literature and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, it's like, why is this classified?
Yeah.
Like The Catcher in the Rye. I did not really like that one.
Oh, I love that book.
That's totally fine.
I'm so worried though because I'm like so many like
that
serial
is considered
killers.
like a red flag book.
No, it is. Like if someone's like my favorite book is the it's not my favorite book.
No.
But you loved it.
Yeah.
I love that book. And but I will say that if I wasn't reading it in a class and coming to meet up with my peers to talk about it every day, I think it would creep me out.
See, I just read it on my own, and I was like, well,
because if I read this on my own, I'd be like, this kind of gives me weird vibes.
Yeah.
But because it was like in an academic setting, you kind of are forced to just be like, I don't know. This is how I think. I'm going to appreciate something.
Yeah.
So, and I did. I really like that book. But it is a red flag. The fact that many people that are murderers like this book, some even had the book on them when they were caught, is kind of wild.
Yeah. Anyway, that's just an example. But I do agree with, I would say most capital L literature books are better in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. I think better for you.
Yeah, I also remember them more.
Yeah.
I've definitely read a lot of, like, little L literature books that I, in the moment, enjoyed them. But ask me a month later what they were about, I couldn't tell you a single thing.
Okay, that's such a good
But, like,
note.
I will always remember 1984 and everything that happens in there. Always remember. And I've read it a couple times, but it's been a long time and I still remember it.
Everything. I think that's such a good read on this whole conversation. Because, okay, so this girl is like candy versus vegetables. And clearly this is a subjective conversation for many people.
Yeah.
But I will say, these books, like Fourth Wing, do make me feel how I do after I eat candy.
Yeah.
I feel empty. I feel depressed.
but
I'm in mourning.
But, like, in the moment, you're getting that serotonin. You're getting
in
that
the moment,
sugar.
it's great.
And, yeah.
But classical literature definitely is like the vegetables. But but in the long run, I feel like it feeds my brain more.
Yeah. I even want to
depends.
make it broader than just classic.
Yes.
I don't think even it's like...
Just good
'cause,
writing
like,
for you.
Yeah,
I
like
guess.
like the books that you read that could have been written like yesterday.
Yeah.
But you find it so impactful.
Oh, yeah.
I would classify that as capital L. Like, you'll remember that you learned something, you grew, anything from it.
Yeah. I love that.
I personally think that's what makes it a capital L literature. There is more, the academics might disagree
They have a
with me.
definition. But I like this, though, because I do think the things that are capital L tend to affect you a long time after you've read it.
Yeah.
Whereas it wasn't just like a momentary escape that helped you in the moment, but it's something that you're constantly going back to, and it's like changed you. And for some people, they could say that about Fourth Wing, and other people would be like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
For me. And I think that just goes back to reading, you guys, and books and the nature of reading. But we just, for ourselves and like for this podcast, we just want to invite people to try reading in different ways.
Yeah, and just before we finish this, I do want to say I was watching some people who disagreed with that video.
Yeah.
And some of them had good points. They felt like the whole books versus literature was pretty limiting.
And like didn't grapple with the nuances.
And it was very elitist. Like, you think you're all high and mighty because you read literature.
Yeah.
But not books. Like, there is a little bit of a, okay.
This
You think
versus
you're all
that.
that in a bag of chips, and you're not.
Yeah. Totally. Sometimes,
We're all the same.
Sometimes I'm like that. So if I'm ever like that, just like comment and be like, calm down. Because I can be like that too.
But and then some people are also like, it is hard to read those classics. It
For sure.
just is hard. But I do think it is important to remember that there's great literature in all levels.
Yeah.
Children's books, middle grade books, those crazy hard academic books to read.
Yeah.
Like, wherever you're at in your reading journey, there's going to be something like that for you.
Yeah.
I think it's a disservice to think that, all that stuff is just really hard.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be for me.
Yeah.
There's going to be something out there.
It's so true. And I feel like as myself as a reader, as we're like closing up, I really like a challenge.
Yeah.
And so if there's a book that's like, everyone's like, oh, good luck, I'm like, on it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your good luck. I'm going to do it.
Or like if they're like, this is the like, oh, what was it? I was watching Gilmore Girls, and it was like him talking about how he read the the rise and fall of the Roman Empire or something. And I was like, I kind of want to do it. Like, I think just like, I want to exercise my brain because it needs it. But that's just how I am as a reader.
Yeah.
And for others, like, they want to read different things. And that is all great. But this is just us saying, try new things because there's also new things we need to try. So,
yes.
anyways.
But thank you for listening to us ramble. I'm excited to actually get into Fourth Wing. I don't know, I felt like this was an important topic to discuss.
Yes.
Before we get into a very popular book and our hot takes.
Oh, yes. Very, very hot takes.
I feel like this episode is very, like, intellectual.
It's also not even just intellectual, it's very, like, kind. I don't know, generous.
Yeah.
We're going to get to the next thing and just be like, this is what we thought.
Here we go into the book, and this is what I'm
As it is. So anyways, thank you so much. We will catch you guys in our spoiler episode. Thank you. Bye.